Masks are a powerful tool in Pixinsight. Masks allow you to target changes you want to make to your image or protect areas from changes. Sometimes the trick is creating just the right mask. Sometimes, in order to do this, ironically, you need to use another mask. A case in point was my recent reprocess of my image of NGC 6888, the Crescent Nebula. My goal for this reprocess was to bring out more of the detail in the faint oxygen-3 shell that surrounds the core of the nebula. After I had pretty much finished my processing run, I found that I had accomplished this. I brought out a lot more detail, especially some of the nice detail in these convection cells towards the bottom of the nebula. But in the process, the hydrogen alpha signal was traded off just a wee bit. The central portion of the nebula in here, I wanted to make this region brighter and redder, but I didn't want to lose the gains that I had made in the oxygen-3 processing by doing this. So I decided I needed a mask consisting of the red textures that cover just the core of the nebula right here in the center region. So the first thing I needed to do was to create a red mask for the entire image. I did this by using Bill Blanchard's free color mask scripts, which I think are really handy to use. And I have those stored over here. I grab the red mask, drag it onto the image, and let it go. And this is the mask that was produced by that script. And if you look at it carefully, you can see that in the core of the nebula, you see the red textures that I really want to target. So this looks like it's a good way to go. The problem is I have all of this extraneous information around the nebula that I don't really want to include in these changes. I need to remove that. And the way I would normally do that, I would use the dynamic paintbrush tool or the clone stamp tool to painstakingly go through and eliminate all of this information to clean up and edit the mask. The problem I have is I'm a little ham-fisted, and as I try to come around the edges here, I would probably mess up and wipe out detail that I don't want to wipe out. And if you look here, there's information all the way around on a continuous basis. And so I would have to carefully trace around that. And that's a much harder task than I would like to do. I thought there might be a way that I could get around this without having such a critical task that I needed to accomplish. I thought I could get around this stringent requirement by just creating a different mask, one that might be a little bit easier to clean up using a dynamic paintbrush or the clone stamp tool. So I decided to create a range mask. To do that, we're going to bring our image forwards once again, and we're going to go to the range selection process. We're going to engage the real-time preview. And I've already been playing with this, and I found a lower limit of about 0.33, which does a pretty nice job of isolating the nebula. Clearly, there's a lot of things in here, stars and a little bit of other bright nebulae that I'm going to have to get rid of. But if you look around the edges here, the edges are pretty much black. I don't have to do a lot of cleanup. The cleanup in this kind of a mask is much easier than the one we just looked at. So let's create the mask. We'll get rid of our live preview, and we'll drag this onto the image. And now we have the range mask, and we want to clean this one up. I'm going to clean this up using my dynamic paintbrush. And I'm going to use this in two waves. In one wave, I'm going to be painting with black, and I'm just going to try to get rid of all this extraneous detail on the outside. On the second wave, I'm going to be painting white, and I'm going to try just to fill in this a little bit. I just want this to be a little bit more solid, so we'll go ahead and paint that. I'll speed this up so you don't have to wait for me to do this critical task in real time. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. We'll conclude the first step. Now we'll go on to do the second step. In this case, we're going to be filling the central portion in here in white. Now that we have this mask, what we can do is apply this to our original red mask. And we'll fold that up over there. And now you can see that we have this region that we really want to be able to deal with. But what I want to do is I want to eliminate the outside. So we need to invert this mask. So we'll go to Mask, Invert. And now we can see exactly what's protected and what we would like to go away. Now, what's the quickest way to make this part go away that's protected? I could try to do some things with the histogram transformation tool, or I could try to use the curves tool to try to suppress this area. But there's actually a much simpler way that I can deal with that. That is, I'm going to use pixel math, and then I'm going to write a very complex equation. And that equation is going to consist of 0. And I'm going to drag this onto my image, my mask image. And voila, instantly everything is gone. So what have I really done here? I basically just said I want to write 0 to the entire image. And it would normally have covered this entire image with 0, but because we have a mask in place, it's not going to do it there. And if I hide the mask now, we can see that I have a pretty reasonable mask targeting just the red areas that I want. It's a little bit subdued, and for a mask like this, I'd like it to be a little bit stronger. So we'll fold this guy up. And to make a change here, I'm going to first take the mask off because I don't need it anymore. I'm done with it. Now we'll open up the curves transformation tool. I'm going to bring up a real-time preview. I'm going to go to the RGBK curve, and I'm just going to bring this up a little bit and see if I can enhance this, make it a little bit brighter. There we go. As we have it get bright, these are the areas we're going to adjust, and allowing some of the modulation in there will make the changes natural and will conform to the natural contours of the pattern that's underneath. So that looks pretty good to me. We'll get rid of the preview. We'll apply it onto our mask. And with this, we're pretty much done with the mask. Now let's go back to our main image. I'm going to apply this mask to our main image, and we'll fold him up. Put him away so he's not in the way. Now let's take a look. And if we look at our mask, it's going to be kind of hard to see because we're imaging it in red. But you can see that the places that are not solid red, places where we're focused, is on the pattern that we just revealed with this particular mask. So that's a good thing. Let's go back to our curves tool now, and we can talk about how to make changes on that. Again, we're going to open up a real-time preview so we can see what we're doing. And I have a few choices here. I could just come in with the RGBK curve, and I could manipulate this and see what it does to my image. And I can make it brighter. I can make it darker. I can make it go pretty much anywhere I want. So that's one way we could adjust it. Another thing we could do is we could go to the red curve itself. Since I'm trying to make this a little bit redder and less drab, I could just bring up the red. And as you see, it starts to really pick up the red. And you can see the change here as I click on this and engage it, disengage it. We go from a fairly drab to a fairly saturated response. Third thing I could do is I could just play with the saturation that's naturally there. Since we're targeting the red, only the red saturation will really be changed. And I can bring that up. I think for this particular example, I'm going to take the red curve itself, and I'm just going to bring this up a bit. I don't want to go too far. I just want to lift it up a bit. At that point, I get rid of the preview. I can now drag this back on. And now we basically have a very subtle effect where just the red textures inside of here have been lightened. They're a little bit redder. They're a little bit more saturated, and it looks a little bit less drab. Now, how far you want to take this is a matter of choice. But this is a good example for how you can use a mask on a mask to create a very highly engineered mask to target subtle things that you might like to manipulate in your image.